What's up, everybody? It's your boys Gin and Juice back at it again. And today we wanted to talk about something that we really haven't found too much out there by all the other YouTubers. It's always about investing and buying and selling, which is a key part of this hobby in this day and age. But we really wanted to start the topic of collecting in 2024, 2025. So if you're new to the hobby, hopefully this video provides some help for you. And we hope you enjoy it. Now, let's get into it. All right, so the first topic I want to bring up is, if you're new to the hobby and you want to get into collecting, the first thing that you probably should do is find a player that you enjoy, that you want to collect, and go after that particular player. That way you can learn the nuances of buying, trading, and just how to go about them using eBays, the COMC of the world, and maybe your local card shop, and kind of finding your rhythm into this hobby.
Right, it's like it's a low risk entry into the hobby where you can kind of, like they say, like dip your toes in, kind of get your feet wet a little bit before you actually jump into the deep end. Because unless you've got really deep pockets, sometimes jumping deep right into the deep end can be a costly learning experience. And obviously we have spent a lot of money over the years getting into breaks, buying wax, chasing players and cards, and investing, rather than collecting. So it's always a good way to get in.
Yeah, 100%. And I actually have, this is one of my 2-row boxes here, so I have a lot of stuff in my little closet that I need to organize. But this is one player, prime example of me. I just got done showing you guys some of Amar'e Stoudemire's cards, but for this particular year, I've been trying to collect the rainbow of Amar'e Stoudemire cards. And this is a cheap alternative. Amar'e Stoudemire was one of my favorite players growing up. These cards in general aren't too expensive. I think the most expensive card that I paid for was actually the 5 of 8. I think I paid more for that than the 101. But the 5 of 8, I think I paid like $200 or $300 for, or the out of 5, the black gold. Sorry. But that was the most expensive card that I paid for. I think the Shimmer 101 was a little bit different. I'm still looking for the rest of it, the Black Finite 101, things like that. But again, this was a cool collection that I wanted to get.
Right, because it's kind of like your childhood,
right,
and the players that you kind of grew up with. So you have like a little bit of a connection with them.
Yeah.
So which is kind of where you kind of want to start, right? You kind of want to find something that attracts you to the hobby, whether it's the player from your childhood, or maybe you have
a particular team.
Right, a particular team. Maybe you have a fond memory of a player because you went to the game and he threw you his jersey, or some interaction happened.
Eagles players.
Yep.
I mean, I got a lot of PC cards that I have, and of cards that I purchased over the years, cards that I actually pulled. And, holding on to these cards and getting them and just focusing on just collecting has really put my mind at ease getting back into the hobby, because it's not always about buying and selling. I think if you're going to be in this hobby, you do want to collect. And there's a lot of cool things out there for you to collect.
Right. You want to be a collector first, and then an investor, and kind of like a flipper, a buyer or seller at the end of it, because you have to enjoy the hobby and not treat it like a business, or it can be kind of stressful.
Yep.
If you do 100% look at it as strictly as a business. But
now,
if you look at all of the businesses, though, they are collectors at heart too.
Yeah.
So they have their own PCs, the cards that they collect, but then they also sell it so that you can get access to cards.
A little Devin Booker action.
Oh, D-Book.
Now, here's the thing. As you start collecting your players and started picking up PC cards, I have a slew of different ways I store them. A couple of them are these top loaders. A sleeve and a top loader can get the job done. Or for those cards that are a little bit more precious to you, you could do a little mag and like this little plastic bag that goes over the mag. I got myself little stickers because I really wanted to make sure it was my collection and put my name on it. But there's multiple different ways. There's binders. What are some of the ways that you like to store your cards?
I like to get them graded
There we go.
and then put into the encasement. But obviously, that does take up a lot of space.
Yep.
And then we always obviously, if it's not the best card condition, it's not worth paying the kind of money. So a simple binder is also a good thing. I think I do that with a lot of my TCG cards, like
Yep.
Magic and stuff like that. Some of the cards that are pretty cool, I just kind of keep in a binder. But obviously top loaders, card savers, mags, and things like that. I probably would avoid anything like a screw down.
Yep.
For your cards.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Avoid the screw downs. Screw downs were very popular, I feel like, in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s.
Because I actually bought a Magic card from my friend's brother in high school, and he had it in a screw down, and only recently I took it out of the screw down and actually got it graded, and it actually tenned, which was surprising. But I would recommend that it's not the best way to store your cards.
Yeah, and Panini, when you do get redemptions, they send them in mags. Sometimes I just keep them in the mags.
Or
top loaders. Speaking of which, where are they? Yeah, I got these all from Panini and top loaders.
Which I don't
I'm probably gonna
like, just because the fact that the cards can shift, and then if they get kind of on the sticky little sticker, then it kind of leaves a residue on the card.
All right, so like I said earlier at the beginning of the video, the hobby does include selling and investing. Let's focus on the selling piece, or basically buying and selling. There's plenty of websites out there that you could use. eBay, CompC. There's also times for you to potentially sell cards to get PC cards. Tell me, what are some of the areas and some of the websites you like to use?
Mostly, obviously eBay is the biggest one. You can probably find deals on CompC. And then just any Facebook groups, Discords you're part of, and even just visiting local shows and things like that to kind of browse and see where you can find cards that you like. Maybe offload some cards that you have to get into better cards, or curate your collection a little bit. So for me, I use all different avenues, but obviously the biggest is the internet, because you can get the widest reach there.
And again, those sites, you guys, if you had never used eBay before, I recommend getting an eBay account. I recommend probably looking on there first to buy a lot of your cards. Second, and a close second in my mind, especially when you're PC collecting and you want to find some of these cheaper cards, is CompC. CompC's been fantastic. I've been able to get a lot of good deals with CompC and added cards to my collection.
Maybe even cards that don't appear on eBay, you might just surprisingly find on CompC.
Yeah, and it sucks, but I made a little TikTok where I talked about using your Panini points. Now, Panini points, you can use Panini points when you open up Panini products. If you get Panini points, it's a bummer at times. But if you collect that, if you hold on to them, there's a couple of ways you can use them. One, if you go to card shows, you might be able to go to a card show like the National and trade in all your Panini points to a lot of these vendors that are there, and you could end up buying wax. I know you and I did that before. There's also, if you hold on to them, you could probably get Sparkle packs. Now, their Sparkle packs have changed. You used to be able to use Panini points to get white Sparkle packs, things like that. Now there are these unique Sparkle packs that are a little bit more produced. They now sell the Sparkle packs themselves, like the white Sparkle packs, for cash, which is kind of
a bummer,
frustrating at times. So you got to be careful with them, but you can also use those points to get cards, and that's how I was able to pick up. There's about 8 cards here for my PC of Arizona Wildcat players, which I absolutely love and collect. And so there's going to be a little bit of different ways from there. So those are some ways that you can find PC cards. Now, you could use these platforms also to sell your cards, except for Panini, unless you do some of the NFT stuff.
Right.
But that's a whole different other story. If you're new to the hobby, don't worry about that yet.
Yeah.
But you could use ComC to sell. You could use eBay to sell. And like you mentioned, Discord, Instagram, social media. All right. So now we're getting on the topic of investing. So there is a little bit of investing that plays into this as well. So we covered, going after players that you like to start your collecting journey. We talked a little bit about how you store them and maintain your cards a little bit. We also talked about
the buying and selling.
And we'll leave some links below of some helpful items like top loaders, things like that, and some of these other links that you guys could check out for buying or selling. But let's also talk about the investing piece, because there is a little element of the investing side, and that's where a majority of the YouTube personas and personalities, I guess, play in the most. We're definitely no experts in this. We highly recommend that if you do want to follow some investment pieces, you follow individuals that you like and listen to their content, but make sure you take it with a grain of salt.
Yep.
You never want to blindly go into something and follow them. Right. And please, we've done a lot of stupid things by buying and wax and so forth and getting the breaks, and we'll actually cover that at the end of this video. But you don't want to do those type of things 100% either. So please take everything that we're saying with a grain of salt. Hopefully,
kind of just like do your own research. Yep. Like come up with your own game plan, and you can always set goals that you want to do, and set aside and figure out how you want to get there.
Yeah, 100%. But let's talk about investing. So investing is probably the biggest part of the sports card hobby at the moment, and what draws so many people in there. The ability to potentially turn these cardboard cutouts of athletes type of thing into big bucks.
Yeah.
And the same goes with Pokemon, Magic, TCGs in general, and so forth. So when you're taking a look at the investment piece, you kind of want to make sure that you understand, what's popular at the moment. You want to understand, one, what are the best sets for each sport.
Right.
Now, basketball and football, if you're looking on the Panini side, you're probably going to be looking at mostly Prism, Select, maybe a little bit of Optic for the lower end stuff, and then as you move into big stuff, National Treasures and Flawless.
Yeah.
Those are probably some of the biggest areas that you want to collect in. Now, the little niche that's been going on recently are these case hits, Downtowns and Kabooms.
Yeah.
They are insanely popular right now.
Yeah.
I think a little too popular, but they are super popular right now. You want to be careful in getting into the hype.
Yeah.
Now, I think Kabooms and Downtowns are really cool looking. I like them a lot personally. I have a couple. I have a Lori Market and PSA 10 Kaboom around here somewhere. But that doesn't mean I'm going to put all my money into that or anything like that.
Or
Talk
even,
a little bit about it.
Or even like, for example, like stained glass cards in basketball. One time they were kind of like the case hit. They were kind of that one in a case. If you got lucky, you got a good player. But then one year it was kind of like just became kind of like an insert.
Yep.
Where it wasn't like as hyped. So you kind of got to be careful too, like what years you're buying into, what are kind of the inserts, how have they kind of changed? Because I think even Downtown's a little bit kind of gotten to that point where it's maybe not as like prevalent, but there's a little bit more of them available, and they still have the prestige, but they're maybe not quite as rare as they used to be.
The Downtown checklist for like say football is like
a mile long.
Insane. Absolutely insane. And there used to be a small select of Downtowns and even Kabooms. When Kabooms first came out, they looked a little bit more cartoonish. They were super rare insert that you could get, and there was a limited amount of players, and they were only the good players.
And I think recently too, like you have to be careful, because I think someone showed us a gold Kaboom, or I saw a card in Korea where they showed me, I think it was the newest, maybe soccer Kaboom, but it was supposed to be a gold Kaboom, and normally gold Kabooms are completely gold, but I think there was like just like a little bit of texting or like a
that's
thing
the
of gold.
New soccer Kabooms.
Yeah, where it's like, and then you got to look carefully out of 10, and I told them, I was like, you know what, the first people who sell this, you might be able to get a deal because maybe somebody doesn't realize that this is a gold or
Yeah.
out of 10 and they just list it as a normal kaboom. And then
It's
one
stupid.
person's going to get that deal and find it. And so it's just like, you do have to be careful and cautious about things because
100%.
sometimes people will mislabel things as like being maybe something better than it actually is. Or in this case, maybe they are listing it as something lower, but it's actually much better.
Yeah. So when you're doing your research, well, when you're looking into investing cards, do your research first. Understand what you're buying, understand what year you're buying, and understand what are the most popular. You do want to play into the hype a smidge. I know I just mentioned you got to be careful of the hype, but that hype, if you play it at the right time, is where you could probably make some big time money. And that's what a lot of individuals do. They play into that and they continue to hype it up just so they can sell cards. Be careful playing in that ball game. Now, there's two areas that I would probably focus on a little bit more if you're going to go in the investment route, and that's investing in the GOATs. Almost everybody that I've looked at in the hobby at some point has says always invest in GOATs, and it almost works out.
You want to think of it as like stock terms. It's like a blue chip stock, something that they've established themselves in their career. So, there's very little potential that their prices are going to completely crash. Now, that's not to say that they won't ever crash, but they're less likely because they've already been established.
Next part is vintage baseball. Vintage baseball, even some vintage basketball and some of the vintage football. If you can get your hands on a lot of that stuff's prices typically remains the same and they go up over time. Same with the GOATs. They tend to trend up over time.
But that's a specialty, so that does require
a lot of
knowledge. And luckily for us, we have our good friends at Louisville Sports Cards who've done a lot of vintage baseball and things like that. So they're able to guide us a little bit. And I do have a few pieces. I think 2 vintage pieces that I've picked up in baseball, and it's been an experience, a learning experience, just because there's so many caveats to it. There's potential fakes and how to spot altering on the cards and things like that. So it's something that I dabble into, but I don't dive in head first just because there's a lot more risk, and it's something that I haven't 100% learned everything about.
Yeah. And I'm actually going to throw a third one out there. When you're also doing investing, if you decide to open products, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit as well, if you go after rookies, make sure you go after the bigger rookies and make sure you go after the cards that sell the best. So the Prisms of the world. So like, for instance, I want to say like 8 or 9 just base Victor Wembanyama's not graded yet, just chilling in a stack. Just in case something happens, I pulled those myself. I also have some Scoot Hendersons, some Brandon Millers. Now Scoot has been up and down, but if you're able to get a lot of these cards at decent prices and they're a top 5 pick, take a chance on them, roll the dice. I wouldn't grade any of them right away, except for the Wembies if you want to flip him really quick, because he's been proven in the sense of like his hype piece, not overall as a player. But like right now, his hype is really high. But I would hold stacks of these cards. Don't grade them yet until you start seeing a trend of them trending up. Then I would potentially grade them and start flipping them at that point. That's how I would do it. That's how I'm doing it now. I'm just sharing my experience with you. Take it for what it is. I could be wrong, but that's kind of like what I've been doing as well. If I would have to give one piece of advice that I would stand by and put my name on it is, before you start selling any cards or investing in any cards, that's why we mentioned it first. I would start collecting first, and I would collect somebody you like so you could understand the positives and negatives of purchasing a card. You might overpay, say a card that you really wanted of a player, and say it's really $1, but you pay $5 for. You probably are happy getting that card, but as you do research and so forth, you'd be like, oh wow, that card's $1. That way, when you understand those nuances, when you get to the point of investing and selling, you can understand, okay, certain cards have certain value and so forth. Right. But I would put my name behind, that's what you should do first.
Losing, like overpaying by $4 is fine, but if you overpay by $4,000, then it kind of hurts a little bit more than a $4 overpay.
So let's get to the part where we're really
We're
much
very versed in.
yeah known for, and that's opening wax and getting into breaks. As a new person and collecting in 2024, 2025, you got to be careful there.
Yeah. It can be a dangerous rabbit hole, and
Yes.
it could, if not carefully done, could lead to financial ruin.
And we'll try to break this out as much as we can. First and foremost, the elephant in the room. Everybody and their mother says, always buy singles, never rip wax.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that statement in a sense, but at the end of the day, someone's got to open up the cards.
Yep.
These cards do not come up for sale if someone doesn't open up the
product.
cards.
Yep.
So I get, as a hobby, we don't want to spend stupid money on opening wax, but respectfully, and I'll try to make this sound as nice as possible, we need those knuckleheads to open up wax at times.
Right.
Because you're never going to get the cards you want because they're in boxes. Product is meant to be opened so you can do the collecting.
Right. Just budget yourself, because it's not as cheap as it used to be.
Yeah.
Versus now, it's a bigger investment, and you can take big L's on product these days than you could maybe in 2018, 2017.
Correct.
When products were a lot more reasonably priced.
Yeah. And let's just say, like, for instance, like a Luka Doncic Prism basketball box where his rookie card's in, the regular hobby box used to be $200.
Right.
If it was $200 right now, Andrew and I would buy every single box in sight. Right now, it's not $200. The retail box is not even $200. A blaster box is probably around $200.
Probably.
So that's kind of where you just gotta be careful. If you do buy, I would say start with buying retail wax first. Get your bearings, understand the product, read the side of the box. The box tells you typically the odds, the pack odds, things like that. Understand the product, do the research on the product before you jump into the hobby version of those products.
Yeah.
That's a 100% a perfect place to start, in my opinion.
Or breaks can be a nice way to get in, maybe get players on a team that you like.
Yep.
And get your feet wet without having to really invest heavily.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're going to chase the top rookies in that class, it is going to cost you some bit of money. But I mean, a lot of the breaks, there's sometimes $30 teams, $40 teams, and okay, maybe you get a couple cards, but it's not going to break your bank.
Yeah.
Like buying a $900 box of Prism and getting $50 worth of cards in value.
It burns.
It burns.
Two things I would say about breaks. My takeaways with two things. One, I would try to do case breaks more than anything. Case breaks give you the best odds overall. I'm not saying the odds are good. I'm not saying the odds are ever good. But if you're buying a team, it's best to get in a case break of that particular team so you maximize your opportunities for those particular teams. That's the first thing I would say. Two, I would find a breaker that has an established community already. Building that trust with a breaker is huge. There's a lot of fraudulent breakers out there in the world, from on the Whatnot apps to even on Fanatics Live, to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you name it. Now, a lot of those companies are starting to intervene in getting those breakers off their platform, which is fantastic. But there's not the same policing when it comes to Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So you really got to be careful, and I really recommend you finding a breaker with an established community. Now, with that being said, I know that kind of sucks for new breakers that aren't honest and so forth. It just takes time. It's hard being a new breaker nowadays in the space that already has thousands upon thousands of breakers.
Yep.
But, I mean, spending your money is... Understanding where your money goes and spending it how you want to spend it in a safe environment is the number one importance in my mind. Yeah. So that's why I say what I say. Again, we don't really do a ton of advice, but if you want real takeaways, those are two takeaways I would have. All right, everybody. We hope this video helps you out. And if you like this type of content, make sure you guys subscribe, leave a comment below, and give the video a thumbs up.
And if you have additional questions, just leave it in there. Join our Discord. You can always reach us there, too.
Absolutely. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. Deuces.